I've been saying I've wanted to do a Fnaf episode on the channel for a while now, and with the movie dropping this week, which by the time you guys see this I should have watched, or I'll be watching, one of the two, I thought it would be quite fun and appropriate to have our first Fnaf episode on the channel. I thought it would be quite fun to put the Five Nights at Freddy animatronics in a Kaiju type universe. And let's bring these illustrations to life. It happened as if someone had flipped a switch. Before we knew it, they were here. Kaiju. Giant monsters that shook the fabric of our world, causing chaos and destruction wherever they appeared. To battle this threat after humanity was nearly wiped off the face of the earth, Afton Electronics LLC, the leading company in robotic development, was recruited by the military, and the owner of Afton Electronics, William Afton, began work on a new series of giant robotic machines to fight the Kaiju. These machines were Jaegers, giant robot mechs, which would be piloted by those chosen to defend the last strongholds of the human race. It was during the development stage that William recruited several military trainees to take part in research and development of a new technology. In his eyes, these were the best candidates. Young and with flexible minds. The research into creating a technology to control a giant machine by linking the pilot's mind was decided the best course of action, to allow the best reaction time against this monstrous threat. With the unlimited funding and resources of the military to create these state-of-the-art weapons, around the same time that the program got into a bit of hardship, with little to no progress on the core drifting system, a group of 5 children went missing from some of the higher-up military families. Despite the best efforts of the military police and forces, there was no trace of the children. A few months after, the program suddenly got a reduction in funds and personnel. With the lack of progress on the disappearance of the missing children, it had caused only a small handful of staff from Afton Electronics to remain. However, these staff members soon moved on to other defence contracts within the military, leaving William Afton to work on the project alone. This suited Afton, as it meant he was free to continue his research on the project without the prying eyes of the military hindering his rather questionable choice in how to progress with the technology required for the prototype Jaegers. For months, Afton was locked away, focusing on one goal, a goal with a sinister means of accomplishment. Over several months, Afton had been looking after the missing children in a secret location on the base. To keep the children at bay, Afton told them that a Kaiju was attacking and simulated an attack scenario around the time of a testing drill. This led the children to believe that a real Kaiju was attacking, and Afton convinced them to head into this area and wait until the attack was over. However, Afton never released the children. Instead, he told them the Kaiju had killed their families and the base above was in ruins. They should wait where they were, with the supplies and facilities available in the shelter. Over the next few weeks, William would devote himself to his work, taking the kids one by one into his lab in order to study them and take scans of how their brains work. This was crucial for the drifting system, to map several different brains of a living subject. Shortly after, William's business partner, Henry Emily, had recently left the base after his daughter Charlotte's body was found dumped and lifeless, with no defining clues as to what happened to her. There were faint burn marks on her temples, and although they looked like the circular electrodes that are used to monitor various medical statuses, even though theories of who could be the murderer came up, there was no conclusive evidence. The truth was much darker. In order to progress with the project, William had killed Charlotte by using her as the first test of his brain scanning device. A full brain scan was performed, and her mind was fried as a result, with the body left limp and lifeless. Seeing this, William had no choice but to discard Charlotte's body and hide any evidence leading to where the murder had happened. Although the scan had killed Charlotte, William was able to get enough data to tweak the scan and reduce its intensity, allowing him to perform multiple scans over time of the brains of the children that were kidnapped. The first child which William completed a final scan on was Gabriel. However, the final scan meant that the child would be connected to the core AI of the Jaeger in development. William believed that Gabriel died when the scan was finished, their brain being overloaded and fried by the final stages of the scan. Once again, William discarded of the body, throwing away the empty husk. However, for some reason, it said the drift system was complete for controlling the Jaeger. The only issue was that there were no pilots for this Jaeger. Undetermined by the lack of pilots, and pleased with his progress, William disposed of Gabriel's body and went back to continue his work on the next prototype and his next victim, completely unaware that the mind, the soul of Gabriel, was now living within the Jaeger. A Jaeger known as Fazbear F, a giant Kaiju slaying Jaeger based on the design of a bear with a top hat and a bow tie, with a sonic cannon that he can pick up and use in one arm. As he closed the doors to return to the other children, William was unaware that the eyes in this Jaeger began to faintly glow. William returned to the bunker. To the surprise of the other children, Gabriel was not with him. They asked, where was Gabriel? What had happened? Concerned for the well-being of their fellow survivor. William saw this as an opportunity to convince the children that if any of them didn't come back with him, they were resting or taking part in research, and it was a part of crucial testing that required isolation from the rest of the group. After a bit of effort, he was able to convince the other children that Gabriel would rejoin them once his part in the research was completed. Normally, the children wouldn't have been keen to help William, or anyone in that matter, with boring research, or research on anything related to giant machines and their control systems. But after he told them the Kaiju had killed their families, the children all swore revenge against any and all Kaiju. William had told them about this project, and about the Jaegers, fueling their thirst for revenge. He convinced the children to be subjects in his tests. They knew there could be some risks, but the more William spoke, the more they began to believe the risks were minimal and nothing to be concerned about. Driven by the need for revenge, the children continued waiting each day as he continued his research. After the data came back from the final scan with Gabriel, William had noticed that the Fazbear F Jaeger was no longer taking any more scanning information. Instead, it appeared that the scanning for the next child in the AI system of Fazbear C, the second Jaeger prototype, was ready for AI integration. During the time of the project being active, with full resources, 3 of the Jaeger prototypes were completed and ready for AI integration. Although the AI required more scans of the children's brains, the fact that Fazbear C was ready for the initial data from a scan of a child's brain led William to move away from the first prototype, Fazbear F. The fact that he could not continue his research and had to wait for the scans to process from Gabriel was a key element in his choosing the next child to perform his research on. William decided the next child he would scan for the system on Fazbear C was Susie. Despite his evil methods on how to continue his research, he wanted to have a comparison of a male and female brain scan that had not seemed incomplete. The scan from Charlotte was corrupted, or damaged from the intensity of the procedure. At least, this was what the system showed every time William had tried to view the results, to compare the minor bits of data from the start of the process. Susie was keen to help complete the research. She was confident that she could help William to complete it. Her hope was to become one of the pilots of the Jaegers so that she could get revenge upon the Kaiju. Her determination and devotion to eliminating Kaiju made it easier for William to use her in his research and experiments. Aside from performing a brain scan, Afton also took samples of Susie's DNA after sedating her. There were other samples and scans taken in by William to use in a side project, a project William called Trojan. The samples were just to be stored and scanned, nothing more at this stage. His focus was solely on the scan of Susie's brain, which he was watching as if he was in a trance. Despite the scan causing more and more pain to Susie, she insists that William continued until the scan was finished. She was determined to complete the scan in one go, or as much of it as she could, no matter how much pain she experienced. As the scan continued, William became fascinated in the final stages, making note to pay attention to the data and readouts since Charlotte's scan data got corrupted. It was during this time that William was so focused on the screen in front of him, he failed to see a distorted face appearing in the monitor. The monitor that had been showing the vitals of Susie and the status of the scan, that was in progress. The face flickered for a moment or two, then disappeared, seconds before the scan completed and Susie screamed out in pain as it finished. A feedback surge had fried her brain. As she screamed with a noise that could shake your core and send a shiver down your spine, William continued with his research, completely oblivious to the screams of Susie, as she slowly but loudly died. William did manage to save a copy of Susie's scan results before they suddenly corrupted in front of him. He was at a loss and shot back in his chair, clutching his head in a crazed daze of confusion. There was no reason for the scan results to be failing, but somehow William had managed to save a copy that was not corrupt to an external device. After calming down from what happened, William turned around to see Susie's corpse in the chair. He saw a vision of Charlotte as he looked at Susie's lifeless body. He thought this was due to mental exhaustion. Along with a bit of guilt from killing his best friend's daughter. Once again, he disposed of another body and returned to the bunker. With the same story as he told before, Gabriel and Susie were in another section of the base helping out with the research on the prototype Jaegers that was still in development. A few weeks passed, and other than checking on the progress of the remaining children from time to time, and a few tests to take blood samples and medical scans. Despite already being responsible for the death of 3 children already, in the name of research, into the Jaeger project. At least that was what he told the children while he was taking samples of their DNA. The truth, in fact, was vastly different. While he was working on the Jaeger project, the next child to be scanned was Jeremy. Except this time, William had a few things to fix from the feedback that happened during Susie's final moments. Until he could fix a few key components, the scanner was out of order, at least for a short while. This meant he had some time to get samples and other data for his side project, Project Trojan. At this time, the children did wonder if Gabriel and Susie would ever return, as they'd been away from the group for several weeks. Of course, none of the children knew just how long or what was needed from them to help in such a colossal project, so they can finally fight back against the Kaiju threat. Despite this, the remaining children in the bunker became more and more uneased with the disappearance of Gabriel and Susie. William was so passionate about completing his research that he told them they were still helping him, and they had to remain separate from the group in order to give controlled test results that were not influenced by external factors. He was keen to tell them this was the most crucial part of the research, implying when the others got to this stage, they may need to be separated and alone for a little bit of time when it became their turn. Jeremy had some misgivings about being separated from the group, but he didn't want to speak up. Everyone was still full of the desire of revenge against the Kaiju. He didn't completely trust William. However, there's no proof that he couldn't be trusted. After all, he did save them from a Kaiju attack that devastated the base above. Even though they hadn't seen the destruction from the Kaiju attack, the alarm did happen, and the entrance to the bunker had been destroyed, rubble and debris was everywhere. Despite this, the only way out was using the Jaegers, but they weren't in a state to be used just yet, especially if any Kaiju were waiting above ground. With this in mind, Jeremy just bottled up his concerns and continued to put on a brave face. He was hoping this would help him continue to be a part of the group. With his family now gone, he and the children who survived were kind of a new family, and he didn't want to become an outcast. The reason for this was quite simple. Jeremy's lust for revenge had faded over time, and he just wanted to move on and return to whatever level of normality or semblance of it there was. The longer things went on, the more apprehensive Jeremy became. Eventually, William fixed the scanning machine using some of the spare parts in storage. Of course, he didn't let the children know about this. He saw it as a chance to ensure that the children willingly aided him in his research. It was far easier than the alternative of having to deal with a bunch of unruly, revenge-driven youths. There were only 3 left, but having them aid as willing participants in his research was crucial to finish it sooner. After all, he needed them alive for the scan, and the healthier they were, the better the scan results would be. After all, the Jaegers were designed to be piloted alongside the AI that Afton was creating. He saw the children as nothing more than a stepping stone, a means to the end being the completion of his work, the Jaegers. Before moving on to his next project, Project Trojan, after some time with Jeremy, Afton convinced him to take part in the scan. This time, though, the initial scan caused Jeremy to experience some pain. Jeremy told Afton he didn't want to continue. This was when Afton did something somewhat unthinkable, at least to most normal people. Blinded by his ambition and obsession for his work, he tied Jeremy to the chair and resumed the scan. All that could be heard were screams of pain throughout the workshop. Afton was well aware that Jeremy would not survive the procedure, just like Gabriel and Susie, but he couldn't stop now. He had come too far in his work to stop. He needed 1 full scan from each child to complete the neuromapping for each Jaeger. Afton knew full well that he couldn't let anyone else know the secret behind the progress of this AI system. No one would accept the fact that children, the future of the human race in these dark times, would need to be sacrificed as part of a project that hasn't been proven effective against the Kaiju, let alone having anything in production. As with the other two children, the scan completed and the subject was killed from the feedback. However, this time, Afton did see the monitor flicker, just briefly. But he put this down to damage from Susie's scan and a few minor bugs that he didn't have time to fix. After all, he now completed the scan and the AI system for the third and last of the completed prototypes, Fazbear B. By the time you're seeing this, I should have watched the new Fnaf movie, and I'm super excited about it. I can't wait. I really enjoyed creating the lore for this one. I think the Five Nights at Freddy's storyline, along with the Pacific Rim Kaiju type universe, mesh really well together, so hopefully you thought the same. I think it'll be quite fun to do some more Fnaf content on the channel, so let me know in the comments below what you've got in mind. If you like this video, why not check out the other Kaiju type videos? I don't have a whole host of Fnaf content, but there is the Godzilla Design Challenge and a Godzilla and Monster Hunter Fusions video. I really enjoyed both of these, and I think you will as well. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in Monday's video, which should be the community redraw. Stay safe, everybody. Catch you next time.